Hello, good morning everyone. Hi, I'm Todd Nauck, professional comic book artist. Welcome to my YouTube art live stream as we continue this weekday morning live stream series during the COVID-19 kind of stay at home time. Many of us are still staying at home. I know a lot of states here in the US are gonna start relaxing some of these stay at home stuff, but many of us, we are in areas where those haven't been put into effect yet, and California being one of those. So I'm still staying at home for a while, so that means I'm going to keep doing my weekday live streams. And I'm so glad you're here to join me on May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. It's Star Wars Day. It's Star Wars Day. Sorry, got stuck in the May the 4th. May the 4th. Which sounds like May the Force. May the Force. It's Star Wars Day. So glad you're here. Thank you so much for joining me. So we're going to draw a shot of Darth Vader. Darth Vader on a red Post-it note because he has a red lightsaber. I'm wondering if I can pull off some interesting, cool... Yeah, I did sound like Daffy Duck. Exactly. I sounded just like Daffy Duck. It was... Yeah. So Daffy Duck, one of my favorite Looney Tunes characters, for sure. That guy's a hoot. So, but... enough about Daffy Duck. We're going to draw Darth Vader. Here on this red Post-it note. So you're welcome to draw along today. And I know we had some connectivity issues here with my live streams last week. Thursday and Friday were rough. I made sure all the streaming devices were off. So hopefully we're not digitized. Hopefully we're not blurry. Hopefully we're not gaggy or laggy or choppy or any of the other internet seven dwarves from just my random imagination here. So, it sounds like dopey and sleepy and laggy and draggy. So, enough of that. Let's get into drawing Darth Vader. Oh, I was going to say, you're welcome to draw along. Draw on whatever paper you have. It doesn't have to be a Post-it note. It can be your sketchbook. It could be your notepad. Anything that's appropriate to draw on. Any appropriate paper to draw on. Use whatever tools you have. I'll share with you what tools I use, but really any pencil, pen, crayon, colored pencil, it's good. Just the main point is to have some fun. So let's flip the camera around. Let's get drawing. Just clip back into the rig here. Live streaming from my iPhone. Readjust the light and we're good to go. So Darth Vader is a challenging character to draw. He's an awesome character to draw, but he is challenging. So I have photo reference pulled up on my iPad so that I can look at the photos of Darth Vader's helmet so I can get those details as accurate as possible. I'm going to start with my basic skull shapes, even kind of drawing a bit of the face, even though we will see none of this facial shape here. I do want to bisect the head with that center line that comes down the middle. So this just helps me know where Anakin's face fits underneath that helmet. And I don't need to draw every little bit, but at least having the eye line here. Okay, so now I got the general shape of the face. I know where the top of his head is. I know where the bottom of his chin is. I know where the eye line is and where the eyes would be because I'm going to be drawing the lenses in around that. And, I'm going to build his helmet around this. It's better for me to have the head sketched out underneath and build the helmet on top of that, as opposed to just start drawing helmet elements. Some people, that might be the way they go. They just start drawing the helmet and they can make everything fit perfectly. That's cool. Me, I prefer to have my underdrawing. I'm an underdrawing kind of guy. So I'm going to bring in the neck here. And I want to be able to have Darth Vader holding a lightsaber. So we're going to draw a hand in today's Post-it note. This is the 31st Post-it note of my COVID-19 live stream series. We only do Post-its on Monday and Friday now. I do sketch covers, 3-part sketch covers, Tuesday through Thursday. So if you missed week 7 last week, I kind of have a change to the programming schedule. So we have his lightsaber hilt right here, the handle that he holds on to. And then we're going to have his knuckles and the fingers wrap around this. Then we have a thumb on this side. The thumb comes around, is behind it, and then we see the this digit of the thumb, just this one, bending over and over, not really overlapping, but falling behind his index finger and middle finger. Now I will I will take photos of my own hand holding on to like a lightsaber type of, cylinder, so I can see what shape do my hands make, so that I can see how to make that shape. And then we'll see the back of the hand, and then the rest of his forearm is off camera, so we don't have to worry about that. And then we'll have a bit of his cape. Okay, and then the lightsaber itself is lit up, and it will be right there like that. So now let's start working on building this helmet here. So I'm going to start to build in those goggles. I'm looking at the photo reference to look at those shapes of his lenses. I know those will go around his eyes. They kind of come close to the center. There's a ridge that runs down for his nose. It's like segmented down the bridge, and then it kind of is a smoother transition. I'm going to just erase that a little bit there. Smoother transition down, which comes forward. To this part of his nose. And there's almost like a little ridge, almost like a bottom eyelid that runs underneath his lenses. So I'm studying the shapes of the helmet. Then he's got these cheekbones, these very angular almost like cheekbone elements. I want to work in the triangular vent on the front of his face. It's got these little circles at the ends here. There's a little bit of a lip inside that there. And then he's got the vents. So there's like 2 on each side of the middle. I can adjust these angles as necessary. So you have these 4 bars, it looks like. So that creates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gaps. Just check other reference to make sure that's a movie quality, a movie helmet. Actually, some of these images are too dark. Yep, 1, 2, 3. Yep, okay. Sometimes there are props that are not Lucasfilm approved images, like they're not. Looks like fan-made props, and sometimes there's some discrepancies. When I did a cover for one of the Star Wars comics for Vader Down, oddly enough, and I was drawing R2 and 3PO, and my editor said Lucasfilm was cool with the art that I had done. They said if you got your R2 reference from the internet, be careful because there is a fan build of a R2 unit out there, which looks almost like the real one, but there are some slight discrepancies in the details, and some artists accidentally use that photo for reference, and so they're actually drawing some incorrect, slightly incorrect, not drastically, but slightly incorrect aspects of R2. So they caution me if I'm using internet reference for photo reference for R2 to be careful not to draw the one that has some slight variations, I should say. We shouldn't say incorrect, but variations. So, okay, now we have the brow. And I was doing the triangles here. There are these little triangles, and then this ridge to these triangles of his cheeks. So it's like a triangle, upside down triangle, right side up triangle, upside down triangle. It's how those kind of fit, but there's a slight curve on the inside there, and then these circles kind of pull back along his jawline. Do the editor or writers send you references for the things they want you to draw? If there are specific things, yes. Sometimes writers, if they're writing a certain locale, they'll give me a link to like that place or a certain type of object. They'll say, here's a link to that. Sometimes if, with editors, they'll say like, you know, this character is going to appear. Here's their most recent design. So you can get their costume accurate for what it's supposed to look like. So yeah, so editors and writers will send stuff. More often editors will, because we got to keep all the characters in continuity. But if the writer writes a very specific place or a very specific object, then oftentimes they'll help me out by sending me a link to what they'd researched when they were writing. And then I do tons of my own research for the things I have to draw. So now we have the back part of his helmet. So we have the brow here that goes over his eyes, and we have that center stripe ridge that runs through the top of his helmet here. And then we have the back of the helmet that kind of flares out and then pulls behind. Oh, and then we have another triangle right here with a grid shape underneath. It's kind of, I think it's a vent sort of thing here. And then we have the base of the neck part of his helmet, which is very smooth. We're not going to see any of these neck muscles, so I don't need those anymore. It's a very cylindrical sort of thing. And then we have his cape, which leads to a chain. We'll just see a few links to that. Fold in the cape. Gonna adjust the angles. Want a little bit meaner of a brow here. And so our light source is going to be this lightsaber. So any of the black on Darth Vader, we're going to do a very stark transition. I'm going to even kind of rough in some of my black shapes here in pencil. There might be a little bit of a light source, like a secondary light source coming from over this side, which will be maybe the environment, the Death Star or Star Destroyer he might be on. So we'll have some white come in here as well, but then a lot of it will be the red from the lightsaber. So I'm thinking about the shapes, the curves, the planes, the angles. Even if it's a curved, there's the curved forehead, and then there's kind of this side of the head. And I kind of think about these things as I draw. And they'll be very dark in the back of that flap of the helmet because light can't get back there as easily. So it'll be much darker on both sides. Maybe just a little ridge here. On this cheek, it'd be much darker because it's further away. Maybe a little bit of shadow right there. A lot of red will be around here. Maybe definitely some black on this one angle here. So I'm just kind of blocking in where I would have dark shapes for when we ink. This is kind of a guideline here. When it gets really complicated, I like to pencil them in. Oftentimes I can just go in right with the ink because I can just work with the shapes. I can imagine how these black shapes would fit in the line work I'd done, but sometimes, like the base illustration, but sometimes it's good to block it in, especially when you have a difficult character such as Darth Vader. Put some dark sections here on his gloves, the far side of each finger here. How do you know where and when to put black areas in comic art? Thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in. Essentially, it's the light source. And I mentioned earlier, probably before you tuned in, our main light source is going to be the lightsaber here. So if this light is going, it's going to hit right there. And it's going to hit right there. And it's going to hit right there. And it's going to hit right there. So the shadows would be on the opposite side. So I have these dark sections over there. So you always consider your light source. And then you consider the shapes of the object you're drawing. And then his, like even here, his lenses. They're curved, they're rounded. The left side will be darker because the right side is getting more of the light. But I'll have a little bit of light over here on this side from just the environment he's in. So it'll be like a secondary or a reflected light source, if you will. So just think of the shape you're drawing and then think of where is the light coming from. So there's more open area in that part where the light is hitting. There's darker areas. So like here on the fingers, the light is coming from up here. So the light would be falling onto the top of these fingers. And there'd be more dark the further away we get from the light source. Let's see, the top of the hilt is black, I believe. Now this might not be a movie accurate lightsaber, but it'll get the job done here. All right, so now we're going to move into the inking stage. I'm going to use my microns, the 01, 08, and 005. And I'm going to use a little red micron. Where's my red micron? There it is. I'll use this red line micron. You can tell the color of the ink by the end there. So my blacks and my red. I'll use the red to kind of give myself some guidelines for the lightsaber there. So it has a really nice energy effect. So let's start with the black micron. Where's my 08? I'm going to start with the 08. And I'm going to start with what's in the foreground, foremost in the foreground. And that's going to be his glove here. And so I'm going to tackle each finger. Going to put some shadows where the finger is bending forwards, or bending back, I should say, back around the hilt here. And then we have that thumb. We're going to put that darker shapes on these bottom sides of fingers. Maybe I'll put some these cross-hatching lines, or not really cross-hatching, but it is a hatching in a sense, pulling from the black towards the open area here in the direction of the shape of the finger. All right, where's my drafting tool? I want to start to render out the lightsaber hilt here, because we're still working in the foreground. So I have a bit of a ridge right there. Drafting tools are great for us to get some really nice straight lines. And then the bottom of the hilt here. Actually, let's get the top of the hilt. Can I please draw Spider-Man Far From Home 3-part live stream, please? Definitely something to consider. I actually have plans for this week, so that wouldn't happen this week, but that may happen in a future week, but I can't make any promises. But thank you so much for making mention. Let's see, and then we'll draw the ridges of the handle here. Yeah, I get a lot of character suggestions. I have a wealth of character suggestions. I do appreciate people suggesting characters. A lot of character suggestions match up with things I have planned or look forward to doing. But I get so many, unfortunately, I can't promise I can accommodate them all, but I definitely appreciate people making mention of different characters they'd like to see me draw. What charts do you think, what characters do you think are most difficult to draw from movies or video games? It varies. It varies. I'll put some detail lines here. Because he has a dark colored lightsaber, so I'm putting in some little bit of a shadow here, because it's still a black part of his lightsaber, but we have open area here for the light. Yeah, as far as which characters are difficult, oftentimes a character I've never drawn before is going to be a challenge because I have to learn their shapes, learn their personality. So, so it can really vary. Many of the Star Wars characters are difficult because they are such unique and challenging shapes, C-3PO being one, R2-D2 being another. Different Stormtrooper armors. So it just takes research, study, and practice. So now let's start working on Vader here. I'm going to start with the brow of his helmet, because it's going to overlap things. So I'm just going to do the main bulk of the contours. So this is that top part that's all one piece. Gonna start to, on the brow. I don't even know where I got the j part in it. Browge? The ridge. The brow and the ridge. That's how, sometimes my brain will put two words together, two similar words together at the same time, and I'll say them at the same time without even consciously thinking about it. I do it all the time. So I was going to say brow and the ridge of the brow, and it came out browge. It's like, how did that word come together? Oh yeah, what was I wanting to say? I had two words that conflated there. So now I'm going to work on the top of his helmet that runs just above his browge. Okay, that time it was intentional for me to say browge. It's going to become my new shorthand term for the brow ridge. It's the browge. Maybe we can get that into this year's Webster's Dictionary, and I can get credit for it like Stephen Colbert got for truthiness. His word truthiness got Word of the Year several years ago when he used to do his Colbert show on Comedy Central before he went to CBS late night. So maybe we can get browge going. I doubt it would become a Word of the Year, though. All right, so I'm going to use my French curve here to get a nice, slightly curved line that runs from the top of his helmet down to the browge. There are a lot of, using the drafting tools even on characters can be beneficial as well, depending on the shape of the character. Did I watch Sunday's MST3K live riff-along yesterday? Absolutely I did. As a huge Mystery Science Theater fan, I was not going to miss it. I watched the riff-along on YouTube, and then I watched a good chunk of the Facebook after show that they did on the Mystery Science Theater Facebook page. So now we're going to work on the news. We're going to do that that segmented ridge that runs in between the lenses there. It's a little darker on this side here. And then keeping in mind that there is this bit of a ridge that is not the brow, it's the almost like an under eyelid. So I'm going to start to kind of sculpt that out with some heavier black, leaving a little bit of a rim right there. Then the other side, there's the top part of his cheek. It's like a little shelf. It's like this is like when you draw like a 3D cube. You know, you have the top, the side, and the front. It's almost like that. So there's the top, and then this side we can't really see, and then there's the front. So that's the kind of mentality I'm incorporating in this moment here, is thinking of this like a 3D as a 3D shape. Where are my drafting tools? If you have a straight edge, it can really be beneficial. If you don't, feel free to freehand it. But I love to take advantage of my drafting tools. I'm the son of a draftsman, so drafting tools were in my dad's studio growing up. Used to go and play with them as a kid. He was gracious enough to let me do that. Don't remember ever getting in trouble for that. And then we have this portion that runs back on along the jawline. It's going to be darker on this side of the face because of the lightsaber light source. Was my dad an artist? He was, in a sense. He was a draftsman. He would design and build houses. So that was his artistic bent. Far more technical than what I do. But there are some similarities because I draw buildings and backgrounds for the stories I do, but he would design them. He would create them from scratch. And he has since retired from that, but definitely a whiz in his line of work. He really could and still can. He just built a little house for him and my mom to enjoy their retirement in. So yeah, so he can still design and build. And then my sister is a photographer, so many of us are artistically inclined. All right, let's start to build this other side of his mouthpiece here. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this part in black. Go ahead and draw the bottom straight across so I can line up that other side circle. Now on this side we're not going to have as much black because there's so much light coming from this lightsaber. There will be some black because this is a black helmet, but it's going to be less on this side than it is on the other side. So we have that little eyelid lip ridge thingy. We have this triangular cheekbone area. Going to do a slight little fade here on the cheek because this light here is really pumping towards his face. Okay, and then we have the inner parts of the go ahead and tackle this this vent, or these, for lack of a better term, we'll call it a vent. So we have 1, 2, and then a little tiny one right there, 3. Then we have 1, 2, a little tiny one right there, 3. And then a line that kind of connects each of these vertical lines, running right across the bottom to create hopefully a sense of a 3D sort of lip there. Just kind of connect some of these here. And let's see. There's kind of like a darker shape inside because the light's not getting inside there so much. I pulled up a very clear image of Vader's helmet so I can really see the details. So because this angle is creating an overlap, it's going to create more shadow, where this part it'll be a bit more exposed because the light can get there because it's going past that triangle. So we're going to see a little bit more of the light, and I guess there's a bit of a gradation, a little cross-hatching sort of inside that vent there, that vent-like shape. A little darker on that one because it's further away from the light. Always thinking, what is furthest away from the light? That's where you're going to put those dark things. Let's see, and now we're going to do that under the chin triangle sort of thing, which is another vent. And going to start working on the neck, and then we'll finish off the helmet behind him. Just still kind of working more in the foreground at the moment. Now we have that little section where the cape connects to the chain, and then we have the folds of the cape. So this is cloth that kind of folds up, bunches up here at the chain. And just putting dark there, and then we'll have some open area right over here for where the light of the whatever environment he is in or might be in would be. So we're going to fill all that in with black later. Putting a little X there is a note for me as the inker to fill this in with black, with a lot of black later. I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to do that same for that side too. I'm going to come in with a brush in a little bit to fill that in, but it's not time for that yet. I like to do all the line work, erase, then fill in all the black so that there's less chance of smudging the ink or tearing the paper. Smaller little black areas, that's fine. I wanted a little texture there, so I'll fill that in. But if it's going to be a big flat black area, then I'm going to just make a little indication. So we have the neck here. This will be filled in black as well. Let's get the curve on this side. We have the chain. And then the cape on this side in these chunky folds. And then over to the shoulder. And we'll just have some more black there like that. So he's coming together. He is coming together. We just have a bit more black to put in. So let's see. Gonna have a little smaller line running through this part of his neck. Maybe it's kind of reflecting his hand a little bit. We're gonna have all this part back here in the back part of his helmet. It's being hidden by the helmet, so it's gonna be very black. deep black as well. But we'll finish that in later. We'll fill all that in at that time. So let's see, now we have the black of his helmet, reflecting not only the light from his lightsaber, but also the light of, we're just going to say he's on the Death Star. We're just going to say Death Star at this time. It could be a Star Destroyer. It could be, he could be in Cloud City on Bespin. So, but anywhere he is, in most any Star Wars locale, there's going to be a series of lights from the ship or the space station. So it's no moon, it's a space station. I'm going to consider that. And looking at the reference material can really help. Photo reference can really help see, oh, that's how the lights are creating these shapes on his helmet. So sometimes I'll make it up, and in some ways I am kind of making this up. But I'm also using photo reference as kind of an inspiration, a guideline, seeing what does it look like in real life? How can I translate that my way? What can my imagination now do if I consider him in a different locale? So I don't have to use the exact information I'm seeing in the photo. Sometimes I might, well, I would in the design of his helmet, but as far as like the rendering, the shapes here of the black and the highlight, I can get creative with that if I want, and I'm choosing to do just that. So right here on the browge, it's going to be a little darker on this side as it pulls around to the open area near the lightsaber. So we're going to, once we start filling in all these blacks, because I'm going to fill that in black, we're really going to see how this little texture right there. We're going to see how this really separates the dark side and the light side, and that it was not intentional reference of the Jedi/Sith. It is actually referencing the science of dark and light and shape and form and stuff like that. So was that intentional with George Lucas, or did he just happen into that? The world may never know. It's one of the secrets of Star Wars, I guess. So have a little highlight right here, just from the area around him as well, because I'm thinking not only the light source from the lightsaber, but also the light source of his environment. Maybe pull a little bit of a shadow shape through this part of his helmet here. Just my creative choice. All right, so let's see. So I still have to fill in, oh, we have kind of the dark shapes inside of his lenses. It's gonna be a little darker on this side because it's further away from the light, but we're not gonna see quite as much dark in this one because it is so much closer to the light. This very extreme, this is an extreme light source. Will the lenses be black or red? There will be a reddish tint to these lenses. From my research, his lenses often have kind of this burgundy sort of vibe to them. So there will be some red from the glow of the lightsaber, but oftentimes they look black. Sometimes they can have a burgundy to them. And sometimes I like to work in the burgundy just because it gives his eyes just a little bit of more, for lack of a better word, I'm going to say life, a little texture. It's hard for me to find the right word to express that. Could do a little bit of a fade right there, just for a little more detail eye candy. And then I'm gonna use my red micron now. I got my red 0.5 micron. Gonna line up the lines here. I'm gonna give myself red guidelines. These will barely show up on the red paper, but that's okay, because I really want this to look, it's kind of the concept of, oh my gosh, you can barely even see the red on there. I have to actually get it to reflect in the light. But that's okay, because when we come in with the Copic markers, we're really going to trick that lightsaber out. So it's okay that I can't see the red line on red paper. So now I'm going to take my Prismacolor plastic eraser. I'm going to erase all these pencil lines now. The guidelines have served their purpose. It is time for them to go. I know I put a lot of work in those shapes, but those shapes, those guidelines were only to help me get to this stage here, to get the inks done. They are just the framework that I need to build. Like when you see a skyscraper being built, you see all this scaffolding around. But when the skyscraper's done, they take the scaffolding away because it's not necessary anymore. That's kind of the same with the pencil lines here. They were the scaffolding for me to build this here. So now that this part's done being built, the line work for Vader, I take away the scaffolding. So it's like, but you put in all that work on those sketches. Yeah, I did. And now we don't get to see them anymore. But the end goal is a finished illustration. And so I sacrifice all that work with the pencil lines so I can get to these inked lines. And now it is time for got a little more erasing, so I guess it's not quite time for, but it's almost time for, here comes the Copic marker rendering. So I'm going to use Copic sketch markers. You use whatever colors you have. Crayons, colored pencils, watercolor, whatever you got, whatever you want to use, go for it. I'm going to call out my Copic codes like I always do in case people watching along either here live or on replay are using Copic markers. So I'm going to start dark and work light. May the 4th be with me. May the 4th be with you. You know, it's so weird to say May the 4th because you want to say May the Force. So you say May the 4th and it sounds weird. It's like I get tongue-tied. All right, I'm going to start with some neutral gray 5. So I'm going to leave more open on the very outer rim as the light from the Death Star, and more darker on the inside as we move towards the light over here. So I'm going to start on the darkest side. And start putting dark gray here. Oh, I still have to fill in all these black areas. I'm going to wait and do that afterwards here, so I don't run the risk of the markers maybe blending or bleeding with that ink. So that's why I've chosen to just go straight to markers, then we'll fill that black in a little bit later. So my eye has to remember this part will be black. So coming in with this neutral 5, we're just going to sculpt out all these darker areas here. Why? Where are they from? Farthest away from this extreme light source, and then also considering the environment light source, the probably heavy fluorescent lights they have there in the Death Star. Now this is under the chin, or quote-unquote chin. So there's going to be more of this darker gray. I'm leaving a lot of this area open because I'm going to come with lighter shades of gray and maybe some reds or pinks as we move towards that lightsaber. So this is a very extreme lighting illustration here. Some dark on this side of the nose, and we'll definitely put this in the vents right there. Maybe a little bit right there, just a teeny tiny bit. And I'm here for the gloves, the bottom sides, because I'm thinking of how the light is radiating in almost every direction. Definitely more out this way, but also a little bit down. So the bottom sides of these fingers and knuckles. This part that's folded over here, sure. This part, so the bottom sides, because the shadow is going to be on the opposite side of the direction of the light source. I know I say this like a lot and like all the time in every video. It's because it's what I think about all the time in every illustration. And then we'll just neutral gray all that part out right there. Maybe a little bit of neutral gray pulling from back here as it fades from the black towards the light source, because that part's in the very recess of his helmet here. Maybe a little bit right here because this part of the helmet's overlapping a little bit. Okay. So in some areas I want to be even darker, so I'm going to go with some neutral 6, neutral gray 6. Just for a little darker. Just to kind of punch up the contrast of the dark to the light. Just a little bit. Let's see, so now I'm going to go to a lighter shade of neutral gray. We're going to go to a neutral 4, I think. Going to put some of this gray in the lens here, just a little neutral 4 there. I think this neutral 4 is a little too close to the neutral 5, so I'm not going to use a lot of it, just a little bit. I'm going to power this down even lighter to, I'm going to go neutral 2. I'm going to make a big jump to the neutral 2. I'm leaving a lot of this open because this red lightsaber is creating a lot of light. That's my focus. I keep, talking about it. This because it's something I've got to think about the whole time. Just a little bit of this gray here into the cheekbone a little bit as we're fading from the black to the red light. Here on the nose, transitioning from the black to the darker gray to a lighter gray. Can use more of this through this part of the helmet here. A little bit more through here. Maybe here blending from the under part of the helmet onto the neck. And then of course here in the fingers, moving it closer, creating that gradation from dark to light here on each finger. Let's see. I'm going to use shades of cool gray for his lightsaber here to differentiate it from his body. So I'm going to go with cool gray 4. Okay. Oh, and let's see, for the inner part of his nose thing here, it's kind of a silvery color, so I'll use the same cool gray 4. And on the little studs right there, and on his little grid here, or grate, I guess I could call it. Maybe on that little vent down there as well. I'll go back to the neutral gray. I'm going to go to the neutral gray 3. Run some gray along the front part of this triangular mouthpiece. Frontispiece, I don't even know what you'd call this exactly. Thanks for the kind words. Thanks so much. Hey Val, how's it going? Let's see. Let's work in that burgundy in the eyes. So it's a dark red that I'm going to work into his eyes here. A little bit of a highlight right there. I'm going to work some into this eye as well, not as much because of the light source. So I'm considering the roundedness of his lenses. Much like if you've taken any art class when you're like in junior high or high school, you had to like render a ball, like they'd have like a ball sitting on a stand, and then you would like on a little table with a cloth or whatever, and then you had to draw the ball and then shade it. That's the sort of mentality with my shading here, whether it be his helmet, his lenses, his neck, the folds of his cape, his fingers. That's that mentality. That is a basic to learn. Shading like a baseball or a spherical sort of object. That's the mentality. You start to incorporate that. You have the light source, the shading, the reflected light, And that is the mentality that you use over and over and over again for whatever element you're illustrating of the character that you are drawing. All right, so now I'm going to start to work in some reflected light from the light source here, this red, translating onto his helmet. Now we've got a lot of red here already by the color of the paper. That's going to be natural. But I'm going to use some, like a shade of pink here for even more subtle pulling towards that light area. So it's creating this shade of pink, RV13, is creating a kind of sense of red on top of this red. I know it's a weird kind of idea, but I want to try to create some sort of idea that this red lightsaber light is affecting the grays. So it creates a subtle transition. Like all through here, through the neck part, I can put this pink in here and it's creating this gray to almost, it looks like it's pinkish dark red to where the light is hitting. I'll do the same here through his fingers. Why? Because I'm a madman. There's no stopping me. I'll put some of this in through this eye here, through the grate, because the light is the lightsaber is really lighting Vader up. And once I fill in these blacks, it's all going to kind of come together here. So stay with me, folks. Stay with me. This is a complicated one, but hopefully the end effect will be fun. Now I want to put some red in his lightsaber. So I'm going to come with some R2-4 here, just to really kind of separate his lightsaber from his from the paper that I'm coloring him on. So R2-4, and then I'm going to come back with this RV13 again for the center part, leaving just a sliver of the paper right through the center there. And we're still going to do some more effects here with this. Now I want to let's go ahead and fill in the black areas here so he really starts to come together. Then we're going to work on a bit of the background and some fun lighting effects. So I'm using my Pentel Pocket brush pen. I'm going to start filling in all these black areas that I left little X's in. And this is where Vader starts to really come together. It's like boom. He is becoming more solid. Not solid, solid. Solid is just my mispronunciation of the word solid. It's not an actual technical term. There we go. So see, it really starts to come together. I can maybe put a little thicker blacks in the capes here, in the folds of the cape. Just like that. So it's really kind of starts to bring home the shape of Vader here. Now let's kind of work on some backgrounds, then we're going to do some fun highlight stuff as well. So for the background, I'm going to use cool grays because I have a lot of neutral grays on Vader. Cool grays for the background to separate him to keep it from all being one shade of gray. You know what I mean? So we're going to start with some neutral gray 4. And we're just going to create a gradation from this corner, working our way that way. So it's kind of it's an angled gradation. So cool gray 4. We're going to do we're going to step down one marker at a time. To the cool gray 3. Oftentimes I'll jump every other number, but not this time. Cool gray 3, because we're starting mid-range and then going lighter. Cool grays go all the way up to 10. So I'm starting kind of in the middle and working my way lower. So cool gray 2. See some cool gray 2 pulling from the bottom here. But actually, I am going to jump 2 spots down to cool gray 0. Cool grays, the grays go from 10 down to 00. So see, now we put that background in, and now it gives the illusion of his lightsaber really glowing here, and him being lit by it. So where's my colored pencil? I use a white pencil. There it is. And I need to sharpen it. Should have had it sharpened before the show. My apologies, gang. Just give me just a second here to give it a little sharpen. There we go. I'm using a Derwent Inktense colored pencil. You can use whatever brand. Prismacolor's great. So we have that kind of, it's kind of like a whitish in these, in the nose and these little studs right there. So I'm just going to put in some highlights. Here on Vader. I can use my my photo reference as a guide. So I'm going to run this highlight on the outer perimeter of him as the light from the location. Nice thing with the colored pencil, I can give it more or less intensity by how much pressure I apply. So if I want more intense white, I can apply more pressure, which I'm doing here on this outside, so it really creates a nice rim there. I like to start light, and then I can always add more if I want or need. Considering the angles of each section, the plane, and that takes study and practice. Pump up the white highlights there. On the inside here, or the side closest to the light source of his nose, and here on his cheek. And here on this part of this flat part here, like the light's hitting right on that, so it's going to be brighter. Because the light is coming down, it's going cacao. In fact, let's reflect that here on the side of his head, because that would make sense. Because it's hitting that flat side first, and then it fades as it curves around to his forehead. The intensity wouldn't be as bright. So just considering all the lights and little lights, maybe there's different lights around the Death Star here. A little heavier highlight right there on that part of the little trim that runs along his jaw. Let's see here inside these struts in his face grill. We're just going to call this the face grill. That's going to be a bit lighter because they're more silvery. Going to run just a light shade right up here along that side. Then we're going to fade some from light to the red to the gray right there like that. And then we're going to put more here on this part of the neck for direct light hit. I'm going to put some through here on this side because there's the reflected light or the environment light around him. Maybe even run some through the edge of his cape there. Oh, and then his eyes, for sure. So a little bit here, running on that little bottom eyelid part. Could do that on both sides here a little bit, more so on this side than that side. And then here in his eye, going to have a lot for this. This is where it really gets fun because it puts so much life in the character when you start adding it to the eyes. So right where that light source is hitting, pow! And then as it curves around, less so. So I really want it bright right there on his eye. And then we'll have some over here because the light's still making its way over here. So I'll put a little bit right there and just kind of fade it away. And then a little bit of a reflected light here on this side of the lens. Maybe do the same over here, just a little bit. So that's kind of a long way from what we started with. This is a very unique Post-it note. I usually don't use this kind of rendering on a Post-it note illustration. So this is definitely different. Be a little reflected light on this side of the ridge. And let's see, let's put some here in the lightsaber, here in the hilt. It's going to run along that rim right there and down on each side. Not so much, maybe just a teeny tiny bit in the very middle there because it's a cylindrical object. And we'll just continue that all the way down here. And look at you know, how light hits a metal cylinder. If you have like a, I don't know, if you have a toy lightsaber, who doesn't have a toy lightsaber? I think I have one in the garage somewhere. You know, you can take an object and shine a flashlight on it and study the lights, how it hits. You can look at photo reference or watch the movie and pause it and look at how the light hits the character. Put a little bit here on the chain. A little bit here on the rim that runs along the neck. And let's put some here in the gloves because that light's hitting right on the top of that thumb and then fades down because the thumb's bent away from the light source. Here at the top of the finger. A little bit on the top of that finger, but less so as we move away. Because we're moving further and further away from the light source. Just putting a little bit in the handle there for texture, but not a lot. Not a lot. All right, now I'm going to want to run this white pencil right through the center here for the brightest part of the light. The light is brightest in a lightsaber right in the center. And then fades to the color as it moves towards the outside. I'm going to put a little bit of white on each side to kind of give it a glowy effect. So I'm using my drafting tool to help with that. Just like that. Maybe just kind of shade from that out just a little bit. Just kind of fade it from bright white to the red. Let's see, is there anything else I want to do? Maybe put a little bit of this through, maybe there's a little bit of a highlight on the ridge there on the inside of the vent. Just going in and adding a few little lights or highlights. Maybe really pump up some of this white where it's hitting. I can always, like I said, I can always add more. I can always go darker with the white if and when necessary. So I start light and then as I look, it's like, can I pump up that jam a bit? Put a little white through here on that part of the cheek. Okay. So my usual finishing move is adding a white outline around the character. But I'm wondering if I should do that here. I kind of like how he looks without it. What do I do? Let's see, while I think on that, I'm going to just add a little bit more. I'm seeing a few more places I can add the white highlight. So some people are saying leave it as is. Some people are saying bring the white outline finishing move. On every post-it note illustration I've done, I believe every post-it note, I put the white outline around the character to make them pop off the page. But I'm thinking this might be one of the few times that I do not do that, because I think it would work either way. If I put the outline on it, it would look like my classic post-it note illustrations. But sometimes I think not doing it is the way to go. And I think this time we're not going to do that for this post-it note. I think it's stronger if I don't. It makes him look darker. It makes him look. I think the white outline would kind of kill the mood of this one. So that's why I'm not going to do the white outline. But I do want to darken up my fade back here. So I'm going to do a second coat of cool gray. So I'm going to come in with some cool gray 5. I started with a cool gray 4 the first time, but now I want more. So I'm going to do a cool gray 5. I'm going to take it to a cool gray 4. Just to give more contrast here to the highlights that are bringing Darth Vader to the foreground. Little cool gray 3. Use this cool gray over here. So I just wanted more contrast. And I think that will take care of that. We'll just put my name running right along here through the dark side. Yes, I guess I've gone to the dark side. Don't worry, I'll come back. I'll come back. My name. And then this will have the nice May the 4th. In fact, I may even write it that way. Usually I do the day, then the date, but this time I'm going to do May the 4th, 2020. And there we go. Vader on a red post-it note. Finished one here. This took just a little over an hour, which is longer than what I usually spend on a post-it note illustration, but we did work in a hand and a lightsaber. I don't usually draw a hand with a prop for my live post-it note live streams. And then Vader is a challenging character to draw, but definitely a lot of fun. Definitely a lot of fun. Thanks for all the kind words, gang. I'm so glad you like what I drew here. Let me flip the camera around here and we can wrap up today's art live stream. Boop, there we go. And then plug back into the rig. Gang! All right, what fun, so much fun. Don't often get to draw Darth Vader, but here we go. There will be I'll have a photo of this on my Instagram, my Twitter, and my Art of Todd Nauck Facebook page. So you can follow me on any of those social media. I've got them all listed, all direct links to my social media in the video description. Sorry, my Texas accent started to come out. My video description is a better way to say it. Well, not a better way, a different way to say it. in the video description below. And also have a direct link to this coming soon. So hopefully, at least if you're watching this on replay, there should be a direct link to this shot on my Instagram. So that's it. This is Darth Vader for May the 4th. It sounds so weird to say May the 4th because I want to say May the Force. May the Force. So you know what? Both ways. Both ways. Gang, thanks so much for hanging out with me. I hope you're staying safe during this COVID-19 stay-at-home season. Please, even if your state's letting you, if they're easing up on that stay-at-home stuff here in the U.S., don't know how things are in the rest of the world, please still be careful. Still be careful. We're not sure what's still out there, so please be cautious. Because we don't want to, start another round of this. You know what I'm saying? But so do be cautious if your state's starting to lighten things up. If you're still in a stay-at-home order, like myself here in California, hopefully you're staying well. Hopefully you're staying hopeful. Hopefully you're staying gracious. And let's try to do that no matter where we're at, no matter what's going on. Let's be hopeful. Let's be gracious because we're all still going through this. Even if things are starting to, we're going through different phases of getting back to normal. Let's be gracious because there's a lot of things at play, a lot of things at work here, a lot of transition. So we need to remember to be kind and gracious wherever we're at, whether we're out grocery shopping, picking up supplies, driving on the roads, encountering people. Let's remember to be kind and gracious. I think that's going to go a long way and really help us all in this transition. And let's remember to keep washing our hands. I know that I have learned a far better way a more effective way to wash my hands than I ever have in my life. So I do appreciate that video tutorial I had seen about washing hands. It's like, oh, I never realized I should do that and that and that. So enough jibba jabba about this. Gang, I hope you're having a great Star Wars day. Hope you have a fun Star Wars day. I'll have some more Star Wars art to post on my social media. Some commissions I've done recently that were Star Wars related that I will be posting to my social media on my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And I'll have some videos right here, and I'll have the link to my Ahsoka Tano illustration that posted this weekend. So look for that. Gang, thanks so much for hanging out. I hope you're doing well, and I hope you had fun drawing along with me. I hope you learned some tips and tricks. So stay safe, stay well. I'm Todd Nauck. Keep on drawing, keep having fun. Till next time. See you soon. Bye-bye.